Hi everyone, it's Sunday the 24th of May, doing something a little bit different today. The weekdays get quite busy and as you can see we're out here in Auckland, so I decided just to get through some of these Q&A questions that you guys have been asking while I have a chance out and about. So let's just get straight into it. Now we received a question from Apana who says, what is the plan of action for people stranded overseas who are on a work visa? Now I wish I knew. The New Zealand Immigration Department must have some kind of a plan. The government must have a plan. The minister must have some kind of idea of what he's going to do. Now, we just don't know what that is. We kind of assume that they'll be trying to take care of people who have made New Zealand their home. And these are the comments from Jacinda Ardern that, in that line, essentially, that if somebody has been here already, they've got a home here, they have family here, or a job, then they'll be looking at finding ways to rectify the situation for those people. What they likely won't be doing is suddenly granting people visas who haven't been here before. I would say if you're stranded overseas and if you have here a house, a car, your friends, essentially your life is here, then there's going to be a solution for you. Something's going to come out of this. The government's going to do something. They're not going to just leave you stranded. It's just that we don't know yet exactly what that's going to be. Rudolph is asking, our work visas expire 20 May and my job is still available. Okay, so this is already past, 20th of May. I'm an electrician and paid all courses in full. So this must mean the electronic license courses. Bought a car that is parked in Auckland. We were at Tambo Airport, Johannesburg on 19 March when flights were cancelled due to lockdown. Will our visas be extended and will New Zealand open borders for people with work visas only? So you may have been watching the new bill the amendment bill that was brought in and the powers that the minister has claimed, and we believe that this is exactly the reason for bringing in this bill, is to exercise the powers in favour of people like yourself. Now, where it's complicated for you, Rudolph, is that it's actually your visa which is expired and you're offshore. So technically speaking, you would need to then apply for a new visa. It's not necessarily the case that immigration will just grant you a visa because you want one. Look, this could happen in cases where you've settled here, you're obviously here in New Zealand, you had intended to continue, I suppose, but normally speaking you'd need to apply for a new visa. Offshore visas are not currently really being looked at. In fact, the government have indicated that they may disallow applications from offshore, but I would suggest that if you, as mentioned with the earlier question, if you've already made New Zealand your home, you can prove that like you say, you have a car here, you've been doing your courses and you're in a great job. Electrician requires registration, so I would think that there would be a way to look at getting you back. It's just that at the moment, look, obviously with border closures we just don't know how this is going to pan out and when things are going to start opening again. Watch closely the situation and keep in touch with your employer, and if you need to submit an application, then go ahead and do it, and make sure that your employer supports that and can go through all the normal procedures. Okay, we've got a question from Vanita. Vanita says, do employers need to go for market test for warehouse manager's job to support their employees in getting residence? Now, sort of two questions there. One is, is a labour market test required to support an employee for a warehouse manager? And the second thing is, would it be required for residents or to be supported for residents? Now, the labour market test is for what we call essential skills visas. If it's not an essential skills visa, then it's not required. What other types of visas are there? Well, there's partnership-based work visas. There are talent visas, work to residence, if the employer is accredited. So you've mentioned here warehouse manager. Well, if it's the warehouse, which is the company called the warehouse, they are accredited and potentially there's a talent visa involved in there. But otherwise, if you're talking about just a normal warehouse manager position for a normal company, you would be looking at an essential skills work visa, which needs to be labour market tested. You have to go and prove that you can't find a New Zealander for the position first. For residents though, no. If you hold a temporary visa and you're working in the position and you want to apply for residence, there's no labour market testing for residents. It's not required. It's just simply not a requirement for residence applications. It's only for temporary visa applications. Starting to get a little bit wet here in Auckland. I know it's not the greatest advertisement for the city. It was a beautiful sunny day yesterday. Okay, Tessa is asking, so we're in New Zealand on various visas including essential skills. Hubby is trade in a field that requires training and experience. All took a hit financially with Corona, and migrants don't get work and income benefits. We cannot afford the new airfare rates. Okay, so stuck in New Zealand, potentially some problems with your job and can't afford to go home. Our in-laws are stuck in New Zealand on visitor visas, and we supplemented their expenses during the lockdown. We're in slow recovery now, but when our visas run out early 2021, our homeland does have martial law and rampant COVID-19. Our daughter is immunocompromised. There are also community protests and human rights violations in homeland, so returning is risky. What happens to us in a different world? Would we be granted extensions under humanitarian circumstances? We would have applied for residence under skilled migrant category, but that's closed now due to coronavirus, so options are very limited and the future is very distressing. Okay, so the question is really about humanitarian circumstances and whether immigration would consider this. Look, perhaps in situations like yours, a complex solution is required. And when I say complex solution, I think it's a little bit hard to talk about it just like this in general, but you might need to talk with a specialist. And I mean a person who's licensed or at least a legal specialist who knows what they're talking about. Because in some cases, visa applications can be submitted even if you're not technically eligible. And then if the circumstances are such that, it's a practical reality that you just simply cannot travel home, well, the government must look at it. They have to. And really, it's a matter of presenting that case through the right channels and in the right way. In terms of getting support from the government, work and income is a different thing altogether. Look, we had been expecting that the government might make some announcements about potential support for migrants. There's a lot of movement in that space, but that's an entirely separate thing. It's work and income. That's the employment benefits, not related necessarily to immigration. So it's something I can't really speak about. But in terms of submitting an application or finding a way for your parents to stay here if they're stuck, extending that visa, surely there's a possibility for them to stay for all of you. The financial side, look, I'm afraid I can't really talk about that. But in terms of visas, I would say for sure there must be a way for you guys to all extend your visas, find a way to stay in the country lawfully. Okay, and last one, Manjinder says, so I've applied for my essential skill visa on 15th of March and was granted with interim visa within a week. After an update from immigration regarding COVID-19, they extended my interim visa till the end of September. As we're all aware, there are many difficulties a person has to face about a visa. In my case, I provided skills match report. So this is in a low-skilled category. So a skills match report from Work and Income New Zealand showing that there are no New Zealanders available, including the regular advertising. So my question is whether I have to reapply all those job advertising and skills match report, or will they give the visa basis on what I've already provided? Okay, so before I go on to the rest of the question, look, I can answer this. You're not going to be required to do those things again. However, immigration is going to start asking you questions about whether or not there are still New Zealanders available, and if you don't try to provide those things again, the advertising or skills match report, well, there's a possibility that immigration could turn around and say, well, we think there are still New Zealanders available from the information we have. So what I've been advising people to do is that before we hear anything from immigration, talk to your employer, talk to your HR department or whoever's in charge of the recruitment, and open that discussion about whether they are conducting any ongoing attempts to recruit New Zealanders. In some cases, we have been advising people, look, go ahead and relist the position with Trade Me or Contact Work and Income again, because we want to retest the labour market. We want to make sure that there still are no New Zealanders available. Obviously, you need to be a little bit careful. Some positions, clearly there won't be New Zealanders available, and some positions there clearly will be a lot. So this is something I would suggest, first of all, discussing with your employer, because it's not so simple as saying you have to advertise again or you don't have to. It's going to be a little bit complicated, and immigration is going to be a bit tricky about this, because they really want your employer to hire New Zealanders first. Okay, and going on to the question, what is your opinion? In my case, I didn't seek any advice from an immigration consultant or lawyer before I applied, but things were a bit simple back then. After watching your video on 12th of May, I have this insecurity about my visa. Please reply this situation and add it in your next video. So, okay, first of all, I hope I'm not unnecessarily causing insecurity with you guys with my videos. What I'm trying to do is put information out there and help you guys to understand what's happening, because look, in many cases people are going to apply for their visas by themselves without help, and isn't it better if you have a little bit of general guidance and understanding rather than going blind? So that's what I'd say. First of all, I hope you guys aren't necessarily taking my information the wrong way or getting too unnecessarily concerned. But if you are feeling insecure, and if you are feeling like you aren't going to be able to navigate the application, sure, go ahead and contact someone. Get in touch with a professional. Look, there are many of us in this game who are happy to have that initial discussion without charge, at least to get you to a point where you know what you're supposed to be doing and whether you need some help or not. You could always wait until concerns or questions come up and then contact someone, or you can get in touch early and start the process to help to find someone who will take over the process for you. Sometimes having an immigration advisor or lawyer is not so much about their skill or ability, but it's about their knowledge and being able to comfort you and help you through that system, like holding your hand. But just keep in mind this holding hand analogy. Very often I find if people are walking through a pool of mud, what they want is to get out of that pool of mud. They don't need someone to hold their hand while they walk through it. What you need is someone to hold your hand with the mind to pull it out. So make sure that if you do contact someone, that you contact someone who genuinely is able to help you get out of that difficult situation, or at least feel like that they are there to help you, rather than simply to hold your hand, take your money while you're going through the difficult times. Alright, so we made a full circle around the block. It's a beautiful cathedral here that you can see here in Auckland, and that building behind there is where the Immigration Protection Tribunal is, inside the Chorus building. So with that, we will say goodbye.